beginning, and that is exactly what shook them up, because there was something about you that felt so real, so soft. So right, that instead of simply relaxing into it, I feel like they started questioning whether something this good could actually be trusted. So let us first take a look at the overall energy between you and this person right now. We have the Ace of Cups, the Moon, and here is Enchanted. Wow. And here is fear coming through as well. So this already tells me that the feelings here were not light. This was not just curiosity, and it was not just attraction either. I feel like this person felt emotionally moved by you very, very early. For many of you, I do not even feel like it took them a long time to realize this. This feels like a connection that touched them quickly, and because it touched them quickly, it made them nervous. It is almost like they were asking themselves, why do I already care this much? Why does this feel this natural? And why does this feel like something that could actually change me? Here is the Star, and here is trust. The situation is calling for you to have faith. So I feel like the bond itself has always carried this very pure, very healing, very hopeful energy. But when someone is used to disappointment, confusion, or emotional inconsistency in love, something truly gentle can actually feel more threatening than something chaotic, because they do not know how to relax into it. Here is the Page of Cups, and here is purity. Wow, yes, I feel like this person saw something incredibly sincere in you from the start. They could feel your heart. They could feel your sweetness. And instead of that simply drawing them in without resistance, I feel like it exposed how much fear they still had around trusting something that felt emotionally clean and emotionally safe. Here is the Two of Cups. Wow, so the love was there very early. That is what I keep getting. Maybe they did not call it love yet. Maybe they tried to keep it light. Maybe they tried to act casual, but I do not feel that their heart was casual. I feel like they knew very quickly that you were someone they could feel deeply for, and that realization made the whole thing much more intense for them. Here is Retreat. Time alone or nature will help you recharge. So yes, once these feelings started building, I feel like this person may have slowed down, pulled back, or become harder to read. Not because the connection was false, but because it was real. And that is such a big difference here. I feel like they withdrew because what they felt with you was actually reaching places inside them they were not ready for. Here is the Knight of Pentacles, and here is caution. So I feel like this person became very measured, very slow, and very careful with what they showed you, because if they had let themselves move naturally with what they felt, I think they would have opened up much faster than they were comfortable with, and that scared them. Here is the Devil, and then the Six of Cups. Wow. So even if they act like everything is under control, I feel like there has been this obsessive undertone to the way they have carried you in their energy. Because once they felt you, they kept feeling you. And even if they tried to return to normal life, to routine, to distance, something about you stayed with them and kept pulling them back into memory. Here is longing, and here is silence. Yes. So for many of you, the confusion has been that the depth of feeling did not seem to match the amount of expression. But I feel like that is because this person has been trying to manage emotions that got intense very fast. They loved what they felt, but they were also scared by how much they loved it and how soon it started happening. Here is Loyal Heart. Wow, so I really do feel like they sensed early on that you were someone they could love deeply, maybe even someone they could stay connected to for a very long time. And that kind of realization is beautiful. But for someone who is not used to receiving something this aligned, this warm, and this emotionally true, it can also be terrifying. So the overall message already is that this person did love you from the start, or very close to the start. But the reason things got tangled is because your energy felt almost too good, too pure, and too meaningful to trust easily. Okay, let us keep going, because I want to look at your side of this more closely now. Okay, so let us take a look at where you are in this connection, because I feel like your side of this has been deep, patient, intuitive, and incredibly sincere from the beginning. We have the Queen of Cups, the High Priestess, and here is understanding. Yes, I feel like you knew there was something special here too, even if you could not always make sense of the way it unfolded. For many of you, you felt the warmth, the emotional pull, and the softness in this bond. And that made you naturally lean toward it with care, with heart, and with a lot of openness. But I feel like as time went on and as this person became more cautious or more difficult to read, you started carrying more uncertainty inside yourself and more emotional weight as well. Here is mirror. Wow. Yes, there is definitely mirroring here, but not always in the same outward way. I feel like both of you felt something powerful, but you processed it differently. You may have responded by trying to understand it, hold it, and nurture it, while this person may have responded by slowing down, hiding, or trying to control how much they were feeling. Here is the Seven of Pentacles. So I feel like you have invested a lot in this emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Maybe not always in ways that were visible on the outside, but absolutely in your heart. And I feel like you have waited, reflected, hoped, and tried to stay grounded through a lot of uncertainty because something deeper in you kept feeling that this bond was meaningful. Here is regret. Someone feels remorse for the way they treated you. So yes, for many of you, there are moments where you replay things and wonder if you should have done something differently. But I also feel like this card is picking up on how you have been carrying pain that was never really yours to carry by yourself, because so much of what went wrong came from their fear, not from your lack. Here is the Two of Swords. Yes, there has been confusion here. There has been that frozen feeling of not fully knowing what to think because your intuition says one thing, but the outer reality sometimes says another. And I feel like that has been one of the hardest parts for you because when you feel a real bond with someone, but they do not express it consistently, it can leave you suspended in so much uncertainty. Here is self-worth, and I really like this coming through for you because despite all the softness in your energy, I also feel a strengthening happening in you now. You are getting clearer about what you deserve and about the fact that real love should not leave you constantly questioning where you stand or carrying the emotional truth of the connection alone. Here is the Six of Pentacles. So yes, many of you gave a lot to this bond, your patience, your kindness, your understanding, your benefit of the doubt, your hope, and your time. And I feel like the imbalance has been painful, not because your love was too much, but because the return energy has not always been steady enough to meet the depth you brought into this. Here is the Queen of Swords. So I do feel there is a stronger boundary growing in you now. And I actually like this because it does not mean the love is gone. It means you are trying to love yourself too. You are becoming more honest with yourself about what you deserve, and you know that caring deeply does not mean you have to stay in confusion forever or keep accepting silence as enough. Here is the Four of Pentacles. Yes, I feel like you are holding back more now, and maybe not because you want to, but because you have had to learn how to protect your heart. For many of you, this connection opened you deeply, but it also taught you where you have to become more careful with your energy, more anchored in yourself, and more selective with your trust. Here is warmth. I miss you and your warmth. And I do feel like this is something they would say to you because your presence brought emotional safety, even if they did not always know how to handle that properly. And I feel like one reason they are so affected by your changed energy now is because they know they are no longer receiving the same openness from you that they once did. Here is the Star. Wow. So through everything, I still feel something very pure in your energy. You may be hurt. Yes. You may be tired. Yes. But there is still grace in you. And I feel like Spirit is asking you to keep returning that grace to yourself because the more you do, the more clearly you will see what is real, what is delayed, and what is simply not yours to fix. This connection has taught you a lot about your capacity to love, but it is also teaching you that the right love should be able to meet you with clarity, effort, and emotional courage too. So where you are right now feels like a mixture of deep feeling, strong intuition, sadness, and a growing boundary. Okay, so let us go straight into this person's energy because I feel like so much of what is happening here lives under the surface with them. And that is why this whole reading feels layered. We have the King of Cups, the Moon, and the Eight of Swords. Wow, yes, this person has had real feelings here for a long time, but they have not known how to move with those feelings very smoothly. I feel like this is someone who can feel deeply but still struggle to express what they feel in a direct and steady way, especially when the emotions become very important. And with you, I do not feel like their feelings stayed light. I feel like you touched them almost immediately, and that made them both drawn in and deeply unsettled at the same time. Here is Enchanted again. and here is disbelief. Yes, I feel like part of the reason they got scared is because your energy did not feel ordinary to them. You may have felt calm, kind, safe, loving, beautiful, or just naturally aligned with them in a way that made them think, wait, this cannot really be happening like this. And when someone has a history of disappointment, heartbreak, mistrust, or emotional instability in love, they can start doubting something that is actually good for them. So I feel like this person did not just fall for you. They also questioned the reality of what they were feeling because it felt too beautiful to trust without fear rising up. Here is the Six of Cups. Wow. So, yes, they carry you in their heart very strongly. I feel like they revisit memories, conversations, little details, and emotional impressions all the time. This is not someone who forgot how you made them feel. If anything, they have kept returning to those feelings privately, even if they act like everything is under control on the outside. Here is the Hermit. So, a lot of this person's processing has happened alone. They think in circles, they replay things privately. They may not tell many people the full truth of how much this affected them. And for some of you, they may have tried to appear as though they were simply focusing on life, work, goals, or practical things, when really they were also hiding from vulnerability. Here is Go Slow, Take Time to Get to Know Each Other. I feel like this card speaks so strongly to how they approach love when it starts feeling important. They want to pace things. They want to understand what is happening first. They want to feel some level of control. But with you, I feel like the feelings outran the pace they were comfortable with. Here is the Two of Pentacles. Yes, I feel like they keep trying to manage you and their feelings for you alongside everything else in life, but it does not stay neatly organized. Your energy keeps spilling into their day, into their thoughts, into the quiet moments, and even into the parts of themselves they were trying not to feel too deeply. And that is why this has felt so consuming. Here is the Knight of Pentacles. Again, very slow energy. This person may genuinely need time when feelings become serious, not because they are empty, but because they get cautious and overwhelmed. And I feel like once they realized that what they felt for you was not something small, they became even slower because now the stakes felt higher to them and the fear got louder. Here's the Page of Cups. So despite all of this, there is tenderness here. There is affection here. There is softness here. And I feel like part of them has wanted many times to reach toward you. Maybe with a message, maybe with a small opening, maybe with a sweet gesture, maybe just with honesty. But then their mind gets involved. And then the overthinking starts controlling the movement again. Here is fear, and here is the Fool. Yes, this is fear of the unknown, fear of taking the leap, fear of what happens if they fully trust what they felt from the start. Because if they do that, then they have to admit that you were not just a passing attraction, you were someone who touched their heart in a lasting way. And that kind of truth changes everything. Here is the World. So, yes, for some of you, this person is also very focused on work, purpose, or the life they are building. And they may use that as a way to stay busy and avoid feeling too much. But I feel like no matter how much they try to keep moving in those areas, your energy keeps following them because love that begins deeply does not simply disappear because someone gets scared. Here is the Two of Swords. So they are still in a mental deadlock in some ways, but this is not because they do not care. It is because they care, and what they feel still scares them more than they want to admit. And I feel like that is why the whole situation has felt so stuck, because the feelings were there, the love was there, but the courage to trust it did not rise at the same pace. Okay, so let us look at what this person would actually say to you if they could quiet all of the noise in their mind for a moment and just speak from the truth of their heart. We have the Ace of Swords, the throat chakra, and here is honesty. Wow. So yes, there is so much that wants to come out from this person, and I feel like they have held it in for too long. For many of you, the first thing they would say is that they loved you much earlier than they let on. I feel like they knew this was important before they were ready to admit it. And because they knew that, I feel like it created even more pressure inside of them because they could sense that this was not a light connection and not one they could casually play with. Here is confession and here is I miss you. Yes, very directly. I feel like they miss your energy, your warmth, your presence, your emotional softness, and the way they felt when they were connected to you. This person may act composed, but inwardly, I feel like they miss the comfort of you and the emotional atmosphere around you more than they have ever said out loud. Here is the Nine of Swords. So, yes, I feel like you cross their mind at night during the quiet hours or during those moments when they are alone with themselves and cannot distract as easily. And a lot of what they think about is not only what they felt, but also what they failed to express, what they delayed, and what they may have damaged by being afraid. Here is I should have said more. Wow. And here's regret. Yes, that is exactly it. They feel they held back too much or waited too long or allowed fear to make decisions for them. And I feel like one of the heaviest things in their mind is the thought that they may have mishandled someone who was actually very good for them and very real with them. Here is the emperor. So this person may want to appear in control, logical, strong, steady, and not easily moved. But I feel like with you, there has always been more softness underneath. And if they were being completely truthful, I think they would admit that you got through their defenses almost immediately. And that is part of why they did not know how to act naturally afterward. Here's vulnerability. Yes, because that is the issue. Your love, your energy, your sincerity, all of that brought up real vulnerability in them. And I feel like vulnerability is not something this person always handles with grace. They may associate it with risk, exposure, disappointment, or loss of control. And that is why they got so uneasy. Here is the Two of Cups. Wow, yes, they feel the bond. They know this was mutual, and for many of you, they would say that they could feel your heart too, which only made things even more real. I feel like they never truly believed you were nothing. If anything, they knew you were a lot. And that is why they started hesitating, because they knew they could actually lose their balance in this. Here is I replay our moments. Yes, I keep getting this. They return to specific moments, certain words, certain looks, certain turning points, and ask themselves what would have happened if they had just relaxed. What would have happened if they had trusted it? What would have happened if they had not let fear speak louder than love? And I feel like that loop still lives very strongly in them. Here's the Hanged Man. So they are still suspended in some ways, still trying to understand what they felt, what you meant, and what they should do with all of this now. But while they are in that suspended place, the feelings do not disappear. They stay there and they continue working on them internally, even if very little is shown on the outside. Here's I thought this was too good to be true. Wow, yes, that is exactly the message. I feel like they would say that you felt so genuine, so loving, or so naturally right for them that it scared them. Not because you were the problem, but because they were not used to something feeling this good without there being chaos attached to it, and that made them doubt whether they could trust it. Here is judgment. So there is an awakening happening in them around all of this. They are realizing that what they felt was real, and that running from it did not make it less real. And if they spoke from the deepest truth in their heart, I feel like they would say, I loved you very early. I got scared because it felt too good. And I have never fully stopped feeling what I felt for you. Okay, so let us look at what has actually been blocking this person, because I feel like that will explain a lot. This does not feel like a lack of feeling issue at all. We have the Four of Swords, the Eight of Pentacles, and avoidance. Yes, I feel like when this person starts feeling too much, they cope by going quiet, getting busy, or disappearing into routine. It is like they try to calm themselves by focusing on work, tasks, plans, responsibilities, or practical matters that feel easier to control than their heart. And because your energy touched them so deeply from the start, I feel like their instinct was not only to enjoy it, but also to pull back and try to regulate how exposed they were becoming. Here is self-indulgence, focus on self-worth, time to heal, shadow work, and self-appreciation. So yes, this person has been very self-focused, but I do not feel like that means you do not matter. I feel like it means they have been trying to keep themselves together internally. And people who are not comfortable with emotional vulnerability often become even more self-contained when love feels real. Here is the Four of Cups. So there is emotional resistance here. They can feel the offer, they can feel the bond, they can feel the pull, but they still hesitate when it comes to receiving it fully. And I feel like the reason is that if they accept the truth of this connection, then it requires movement, honesty, and emotional courage. And those are the exact places where they still feel shaky. Here is fear of rejection. Yes, I feel this very strongly here. For many of you, this person also worries now that too much time has passed or that they may not know how to come back in a clean way. Maybe they feel they disappointed you. Maybe they know they created distance. Maybe they know their fear affected you. And now they do not know if you would welcome them or keep your heart guarded. Here's the Five of Swords. So they have this defeated feeling around the situation at times, not because they do not care, but because they think they may have already damaged something important. And that kind of defeat can make someone freeze even more. Instead of pushing through it, they can start telling themselves that maybe it is too late, or maybe they already lost the chance they had. Here is timing. So, yes, I do feel timing has been a factor here as well. Maybe the connection came in when they were already overwhelmed, or not emotionally ready, or still carrying older pain. And sometimes when real love arrives before someone has become brave enough to receive it, they do not know how to meet it properly, even though they feel it very deeply inside. Here is the devil. So I do feel there are strong patterns here around overthinking, avoidance, fear, control, and even attachment to the familiar, even when the familiar is not emotionally fulfilling. And those patterns can keep someone trapped in their head for a long time. They know what they feel, but they keep stopping themselves before the feelings can become action. Here is the Queen of Cups. Wow. And this tells me that your energy is exactly what softened them, and also what made the whole situation feel more intense to them. You brought up their heart. You brought up their tenderness. You brought up the part of them that wanted to trust love again, and that was beautiful, but also very destabilizing if they were not prepared for it. Here is hidden tears. Yes, some of them are much more emotional over this than they would ever tell you, or maybe even admit to themselves very clearly. And I feel like part of what hurts them is the thought that something so beautiful ended up tangled in fear, silence, or delay when it could have been approached with openness instead. Here is the Tower. So yes, this connection shook their usual way of coping. It exposed where they still rely on control. It exposed where they still hide. It exposed where they still run. And when a connection exposes all of that, someone can either grow or keep resisting the lesson for a while. I feel like this person has been somewhere in between feeling it all, but still struggling with movement. Here is the Ace of Pentacles. So I still feel potential here. I still feel that part of them wants something real, something grounded, something honest, and something they can actually build. But to get there, they would have to move through fear, move through pride, move through delay, and stop treating their own feelings like something dangerous. And that is the challenge still standing in front of them. Okay, so let us take a look at the near future energy here, because I do not feel this story is emotionally dead at all. I feel like there is still movement building under the surface. We have the Knight of Cups, the Judgment card, and Trust. Wow. So yes, something is shifting here, and I feel like this person is getting closer to facing what they have felt all along. For many of you, keeping everything inside is starting to become harder for them than simply admitting the truth, even if only in a small way at first, because the feelings did not leave, the memories did not leave, the love did not leave. And that means eventually all of that starts creating pressure toward honesty and movement. Here is communication, and here is the Page of Swords. So yes, I do feel watching, thinking, and mentally drafting something before speaking, but communication is still strongly present. If you have felt like this person has things they want to say, I would agree with that very strongly, because the energy here does not feel finished, and it does not feel emotionally settled yet. Here is the Sun. Beautiful. So I feel like clarity is coming, and I also feel like your own energy gets lighter from here, whether that is because of contact, because of insight, or because of healing. Things that have been hidden are not meant to stay hidden forever. And I feel like your heart is also being guided back toward warmth, confidence, and stronger trust in what you already sensed. Here is resurrection. Yes, something is reviving or being understood in a new way, or being brought back into awareness with more truth around it. Now, for some of you, this could absolutely be reconnection. For others, it could be a conversation that finally says what should have been said long ago. But either way, something is thawing. Here is divine timing. So yes, I feel like timing matters, and I know that can be frustrating when the feelings are real, but I also feel that both of you have been learning through the delay. For you, stronger self-value, stronger discernment, and stronger trust in your own intuition. For them, emotional accountability, honesty, and the courage to stop hiding from what feels good. Here is the Two of Cups. Wow. So the mutual bond remains. I keep seeing that over and over. The feeling itself does not look one-sided to me at all. What looks uneven is pace, expression, readiness, and bravery, but the actual heart connection still looks present, and that is why this has remained so alive in the energy. Here's the Six of Swords. So there is calmer energy ahead. I do feel the heaviness start shifting out of confusion and into something more understandable and more peaceful. Whether that peace comes through union, through truth, through closure, or through a renewed beginning will vary. But the intensity is not meant to stay frozen in silence forever. Here is the star. Beautiful hope, healing, restoration, and I feel like Spirit really wants you to know that the love they felt from the start was real, even if fear got tangled around it. You were not imagining the sweetness, you were not imagining the pull, you were not imagining the way they softened. All of that was real, and it mattered much more than they showed. Here is my life as an experiment. I embrace the exploration. I love this as advice for you because it says do not let your whole life stop while this person catches up to their own heart. Keep living, keep exploring, keep opening yourself to joy, beauty, and new experiences because your life is not supposed to shrink around someone else's hesitation or delay. Here is the Queen of Wands. Yes, come back into your confidence, your magnetism, your warmth, your beauty, and your power. You do not have to chase evidence that you mattered. The energy already shows that you did. And for many of you, the more you return to your own light, the more clearly this whole situation reveals its truth, whatever that truth is meant to become. Here is I want to reach out to you and talk. Wow, and here is I know I hurt you. Yes. So I do feel there is awareness growing here, maybe not perfectly and maybe not all at once, but enough to show me that this person knows something precious was here and knows fear got in the way of what could have unfolded more naturally. So the overall message here is that this person loved you from the start. You felt too good to be true to them. And because of that, they got scared, slowed down, questioned it, and tried to control what they felt. But the feeling did not disappear. It stayed. And I feel like what comes next is more truth, more clarity, more emotional reckoning, and for you, a stronger return to your own peace, value, and light. I feel like there is still movement building under the surface. We have the Knight of Cups, the Judgment card, and trust. Wow.